Welcome back to another episode of the Next Chapter podcast. I am very excited to welcome today's guest, Allison, a solo mother of two beautiful boys, and I'm looking forward to sharing her journey into motherhood and how she has been prioritizing her passion and purpose alongside motherhood. So welcome, Allison.
Hi, Andrea. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
You're welcome. So I like to really start at the beginning of your journey, and I love to ask my guests where they kind of envisioned their life when they were a little girl.
So truly, as a little girl, I envisioned my life as a mom. I mean, I can go back as far back as having tea parties and, being a little hostess, playing with my Cabbage Patch dolls, playing with my Barbies, though my mother would tell you that I ripped the heads and the arms off, so I'm not sure how motherly that is.
Yeah, but not so popular now with the Barbie movie either. You probably,
I haven't seen it yet. My boys are not interested. So I just always, being a mother was, my path. The rest of it just sort of are things you have to do, work and take care of a house,
right.
All of the other grown-up stuff.
And I appreciate that. And I like to ask that because just in general, sometimes when people are in the middle of their journey and not sure what direction to go, if they feel kind of stuck, sometimes it helps to kind of lean back on what you wanted when you were a child. So I mentioned that you are a mother to two boys. So can you kind of take us on the journey of becoming a mother? Because I know that that's, a major part of your story.
Yeah, of course. So my journey is a little bit different. Rather than get married and have babies in the old-fashioned way, I am a solo mom, which means I had them on my own. I was in a long-term relationship in my late 20s and early 30s, and unfortunately it didn't work out. And when we ended our relationship, I had also just dealt with the cancer diagnosis, and thankfully that was all worked out, and I'm healthy, and it's 11 years post-cancer, and all's good. And I had a good friend going through fertility treatments to become a solo mom, so it wasn't a foreign concept to me to consider that. Mm-hmm. I decided, though, I'd rather start dating a little bit more, see who I could meet, and I had some good stories to tell from those experiences, which is a whole different podcast. And ultimately, none of those relationships worked out either. And I was in therapy at the time. And my therapist said to me, if you had to choose, and you could meet someone tomorrow and potentially never become a mother, but you'd be a wife, or you could stop dating and maybe never fall in love, but have a child or two or however many, which would you rather? And there wasn't even a split second to think about it. I knew that my path was to become a mother. So I would say I was probably about getting near my 39th birthday at that point, and spoke to my OB and said, where do I go? What do I do? And I started the path of going through the fertility treatments on my own.
There's so much in that I want to kind of highlight that it's so admirable that this was something that you said you dreamed of when you were a little girl, that you wanted to become a mother, and that, again, that you worked this out through a therapist and understood that there were choices, that while searching for the right partner, you were doing that at that time wasn't something that you chose to continue to focus on, that you went through with, like I said, what was your dream, and it's extremely admirable. So I wanted to really let you know about that. And also I wanted to point out just that at any given moment we do have choices, and while that was a really powerful choice, and I'm sure we're going to get into it in the conversation, a challenging choice to make. Are you going to continue to pursue on the path of finding love, and how you pointed out, like the traditional way? I don't know if I would necessarily use that word traditional, because at this point, being a mom, you're a mom, and the way that it happens. So I wanted to just point that out, there, but that you have choices. And
Yeah.
so can you kind of speak to that?
And it's funny that you say that. This still sticks out in my mind all these years later. When I was going through the fertility process, a friend of mine was also talking to a fertility provider to help with her second child. And she was keeping that a secret, which is her choice. And she said to me, "You're so open about it." And I said, "Well, I have no partner. What choice do I have, if I get pregnant?" She said, "Well, you could just tell people you met someone at a bar." And I said, "Well, there's a big difference, right, of meeting a random person at a bar and winding up pregnant and deciding to keep it versus I made this choice. This is a really significant, powerful choice that I've made to become a mother and go through this journey and this process alone." So it's interesting. It always sticks out in my mind that to her, and it's fair, nobody has to be as open and flow of words as I am about the process, but to me that just seemed silly that I would lie and say I met somebody and here I am pregnant.
Right, that's again, there's so much to unpack with that it's not authentic. That why should you ever hide who you are, what is important to you, the choices that you made? You don't need to justify anything, but you don't need to lie because it's a beautiful choice that you made and something that you should be proud of. So that kind of is, again, upsetting that people, maybe for whatever reason, I'm just thinking that they're not comfortable with it, whatever it is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. They're not comfortable with it. And sadly, I mean, whether it's legitimate or not, I still even feel years later, I have an almost 5 and almost 7-year-old and people aren't comfortable with it. Whether it's I'm not included in various family parties, and I don't mean with my family, I mean other, in the community where you're not included. Oh, well, they don't have a spouse. How would they feel? Don't worry about how I would feel.
Right.
I feel fine. And if I'm not comfortable, I'll make that decision. But to me, that's not really about me. It's about whether everybody else is comfortable with who I am.
Exactly. And so that, again, when people say things, just in general, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, when people say things that 99% of the time, it's about the other person.
Of course, right.
But you, again, should be extremely proud of what you do. It's what you did, and it's so admirable. And I 100% appreciate how authentic you are and how open you are, because it is a conversation that needs to be had, and that people need to understand that there are many different paths to motherhood. And being a solo mother is a beautiful, wonderful way to have children, and so that should be celebrated just like any other path to motherhood. So
I couldn't agree more. And I appreciate that you use the word solo, because there is a difference of a single parent.
Can you talk about that? Because when we had a conversation the other day, you were very clear about solo mom, and I think that is something that really needs to be highlighted.
So yeah, I mean, I only really use the word solo mom. I'm not a single mom. Single moms, I'm also a divorce lawyer, so I work with, people who are ending relationships, ending marriages, and those are single parents where you're in your house and the other parent is in another home, and you might not be an intact family, but you're still a family, and you're able to rely on the other person for helping to take care of your children, helping to co-parent, make decisions, financially contribute. I recognize not everybody necessarily gets child support, but there's still a difference. But I don't have that other person. I don't have someone else to rely on to make those decisions, to help support the children. I am solo. Every decision, good, bad, or indifferent, is on me. So I really very strongly, I feel so strongly about using that word. There's all the mommy wars, and you see blogs and articles and what have you about, oh, I'm a single parent this week, my husband is traveling. You're not a single parent. You're not a single mom in that moment. your husband's traveling, whether it's for business or pleasure.
Right.
And again, I recognize I'm being more traditional and stereotypical. We could have two mother households or even two father households, but there's a difference. There's a difference when you're actually solo. You're solo doing it all. I still think back to when my younger son was probably about 9 months old. My older one was, a little under 3, and my little one was climbing onto the dishwasher. I had it open. I was emptying the dishes, and my older one, who likes to be a little bit of a dictator, Mommy, get him off, he's going to be in trouble. And I said, he's fine, let me handle the parenting. You're not his father. And needless to say, my younger one grabbed a knife and cut his face. He's fine. And so, point of fact, I should listen to my older son. But I remember saying to friends, had I had a partner, I would have probably started a fight. This is because you're not here. This is because you didn't unload the dishwasher. I do everything. And it would have been one of those arguments that just because you were anxious and, oh my God, thankfully no one got hurt. And I had to just breathe. And okay, everybody's fine and there's no one to blame. And this is really not that big of a deal, thankfully. And, I just think to myself, sometimes I'm probably luckier that I'm not having trivial arguments over nonsense.
Well, and I'm sure you hear trivial arguments, in the type of work that you do. So, I think that it is so important that you made that distinction, because you are doing this on your own and it takes a lot. You're wearing every single hat. They say mothers wear so many different hats, but you have that extra hat and that extra responsibility and weight. So I guess my question also is, and this is something that I talk a lot with my clients about, is building a support system. Now, while you mentioned a single parent or traditional households where there might be, a partner involved, I still talk about the importance of having a support system. So for you, what does your kind of support system look like?
So I have a great support system. I live in town where my parents are. I moved here because I wanted grandma and grandpa close. So they're a tremendous help. Hint, hint, if you're listening, babysits.
Please babysit.
I have wonderful babysitters. I have many people I can call and rely upon. Sadly, I joke that a lot of the younger ones I've finally gotten in my roster are all now graduating high school, so I've got to up the roster again.
Right.
I've made some amazing friends who are my kids call them mommy X, mommy Y. So, we have a lot of people we can rely on. I have a partner. He's a tremendous help. And, whether it's even last week reprimanding one of my kids who just wouldn't listen. So, I've built a support system and we just manage. We get through it just as everybody else does. And, the one positive is with my job is I have a lot of flexibility. And I think even, having all of us gone through COVID and started working at home and remotely and just, everybody having to take a step back, that's also helped because it's made me realize everything can wait. If I have to say to another attorney or a judge, hey, I've got to pick up my kids, I can't make it at that time, the world's not going to crash down and burn if
right.
things have to wait for my kids. So I had an adversary several years ago say to me, never apologize for putting your kids first. Your clients will come and go. They probably won't even be thankful. Judges will come and go, but your kids will not come and go, and they'll always remember. So I try to focus on that as much as I can.
Well, that's important too. So building a support system obviously is important, but then on top of that, for any mother, kind of the non-negotiables are important. So you mentioned, the family first, your kids first. Are there any other non-negotiables for you that?
I mean, that's really honestly the most important. It's really making sure that what my kids need come first, recognizing that I still do have to work and, pay the bills and, I can't be at everything. I just recently joked to some friends who are, my mommy friends, but who are, 10 years younger than me, just given the nature of the age of our children. And I said, oh, the reason I don't, connect with a lot of people is because I'm Gen X. So, you can relate. And I feel like I just raised my kids a little differently. I'm still like more old fashioned. And do we have to be at every sporting event and every school event? Our parents weren't. We seem to be thriving okay.
Right.
So it's a little bit keeping up with the Joneses, and well, everybody else is sitting out of practice, even though our kids are, 300 yards away, can't even see us.
Right.
Versus, hey, it's okay if I drop them and, run to the grocery store or sit in the car and do some work. So it's a little juggling that is, hard, I think. But I think that's all moms, solo,
For
single,
sure.
partnered, or what have you.
100%. I think that kind of touches upon balancing and the mom guilt. So, the mom guilt can come in and creep in. Should I be, like you said, at every single event? Should I be going to that practice, even though my child really can't see me, but they know that I'm there? Or you could be doing something else that is productive in getting something off of your so-called to-do list and moving your life forward. So there's always that kind of pull. So I guess as far as touching on the mom guilt, where does that kind of creep in for you?
I mean, I think I'm a Jewish mom, so I have Jewish mom guilt, on top of just the mom guilt all the time, whether it's balancing things, whether it's putting myself first, because I am a solo mom and in a serious relationship, a lot of times we juggle, and when my partner doesn't have his children for the weekend, I get a babysitter, and then I feel guilty. I'm not with my kids. I should be with my kids, but I also know I'm a better mom when I'm doing things for myself. There's no good, your kids are older now, but when they're younger and somebody's screaming at drop off and you walk away and, as they're pulling at you and, 5 minutes later, they're fine. And then you're sitting with the guilt all day of, oh, wonderful. That was, so great, or yelling in the morning to get the shoes on. So, I think I live with the guilt every day, but, I also, you do what you can. And, being a mom's not all roses and butterflies every day, but
no, it's certainly not. And it's understanding, I think, pointing out that at any given moment, we are doing the best that we can with the information that we have, with our energy that we have, with our mental, physical capacity that we have. And so I think if we can kind of be gentler on ourselves, because the guilt really can creep in at any moment. But again, recognizing at any given moment, that's the best that we could do.
Right.
And if it was, like you said, screaming at the kids, hurry up, we gotta go, then that is what needed to happen in the moment. Doesn't mean that it needs to be repeated in the next moment.
Right.
And that you can't, say, okay, this is what mommy was feeling right now and share that, but that you gotta, kind of give yourself a little bit of
I agree. I mean, I'm a yeller, but I'm also an apologizer, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have yelled like that. Even though sometimes I'm thinking, I probably should have yelled like that. But I try to recognize when I've lost my patience, which really has nothing to do with them, and trying to give myself grace in those moments of, I'm just a human and, doing the best I can, which 100%. Is really what they're doing also most of the time.
Right, exactly. And then a lot of times what they're doing, their delay of putting their shoes on or getting out of the car or whatever it is, getting up in the morning, typically isn't because they want to annoy you. There's something else behind that. We just sometimes don't have the time to get behind.
Right, exactly.
Why.
It's hard sometimes recognizing that kids are people also, and they can make their own decisions and have their own thought process, and it might not be in line with what you want right at that moment of, we've got to eat our breakfast, get our shoes on, leave the house. And
kind of speaking to people, moms are people too. So while we are a mother, and we have established in the beginning of the conversation how important it was for you to become a mother, you are also a person. You're a beautiful woman that has all these other, interests and facets to you. So my question now is kind of, how do you balance being this wonderful mom role model to your children while also kind of pursuing your full identity as this woman?
So it's not even an easy answer or a straight answer, because every day is a little bit different. So like I said, I have a partner, and so a lot of it is just trying to find myself and make time to build that relationship and to blend our families. I try to take walks every day, which is just good for my mental health and my physical health. And that might not seem like a lot, but it's taking 30 to 45 minutes of just centering on myself and listening to a podcast or listening to some music.
The Next Chapter podcast, of course.
Yes, of course. It's putting my kids to bed by 7 or 7:30 and, binging some shows and scrolling social media for 2 hours. And it's just recognizing that I am also a person, and, I love my kids, and I would do everything I did to have them over and over again, but I'm also a person. I'm not just mommy. They know my name is also Allison. It's not just mommy. Yeah. And it's trying to recognize that. Even sometimes, I laugh when I see other people's pictures from, vacation, like proof of mom, proof of dad. Like, how about just proof of Allison, proof of Andrea? It doesn't have to be only mom or dad. And I feel like with the nature of our generation and parenting, we've gotten lost as who we are. I wish I had all the magic answers, because I certainly don't. Yeah. But I try really hard to recognize that I'm also a person with needs.
Well, I really appreciate that, because that literally is the work that I do with my clients. I have a program called This Is Me, that it's not just like you said, I'm not just mom. That is one portion of me, an extremely important portion. And as we said, that we value our children and are so proud to be able to bring them into this world and all of that, but that we were a person before that also. Right. And that recognizing that we have needs, and it's so important also to, I think, be a role model for our children, because when they go off out of our homes, that we want them to be able to stand proud as not just our sons or our daughters or whatever, but that they are a full human being with so much value to add.
Yeah, so. I couldn't agree more. And the reality is to that point, not that when your kids leave off to go to college that you're done parenting. We all know that, it just gets harder at that point. Yeah. But, so many people, I see it just from my profession, they've lost themselves. They've lost their relationships. And who are they, and who is their identity other than a chauffeur to cheerleading and soccer and lacrosse and tennis and being an employer or an employee, and they don't know what to do with themselves. And I think 18 years goes by really quickly, and that's such a shame for people. It does
go by. I just got the chills, because my son, we're a little ahead of you. My son is a sophomore, and then my daughter is in 6th grade, and he's already talking, he's started to take these tests and stuff. It does go by really fast.
Really fast. So, you're going to be in the thick of it in another year or so. But I think that's so important. And I see it so often, whether it's through my profession or through friends, and just losing themselves, and they're not taking time out for themselves. Go get a facial. It's okay if your partner, your significant other, your spouse, or a babysitter is watching your kids. Everyone will survive. It's okay if somebody else puts your kids to bed, and go take a ride and go to Target together and do things that are just for you. Not, okay, let's only do things with the kids. Let's only focus on being a parent. It's just, there's a lot of life besides just those 18 compact years of running around in circles.
100%. And when you don't, I always use this analogy. I know that it's kind of hokey or whatever, but if you don't put your oxygen mask on first, you really aren't going to have the energy to show up and be the best mother that you can. When you're drained, those are the moments, I think, unfortunately, when we lose our patience and we can't show up the best that we can, because our tank, our oxygen, whatever, is depleted.
Oh, 100%. Recently with just the world events and just dealing with recurring ear infection in one of my kids. I'm not sleeping well, and I am drained. I'm drained mentally and physically, and I'm losing my patience all the time. And I realize I've got to take a step back. And if it means taking a day off of work and laying in my bed and taking naps all day, I've got to get myself back to a better place, because it's not fair to anybody. Everybody's losing out. I'm losing out. My kids are losing out. My clients are losing out. And it's really true. I agree. I always think, oh, it's such a hokey thing, but it is true. There's a reason they say put your oxygen mask on first.
Exactly. I mean, I like to just use that analogy, and it is building that awareness. And I appreciate that you said that you have, the awareness that you understand that there are so many different competing factors, whether it's, a child or someone in your family being ill, or unfortunately the world events that are happening that, or it could be even for people in their home, if there's, that laundry basket that's piling up, or the dirty dishes, or the check oil in my car that keeps beeping. But there are all these mini little factors that are like little drains or tugging at you, and you don't realize it until you are aware.
Yeah,
until you build that awareness.
It's like that movie, I can't think of it, but where the guy hears that like beeping, the clock tower over and over, and it's like everything's pinging at you, and you feel like you're going to explode sometimes. And so it's really, again, recognizing I'm a person, and I'm doing the best I can, but I also need to do something right now for myself that's going to get me into a better place to handle it all. So
I guess kind of going off of that, at what points have you felt kind of misaligned? And then on the flip side, I guess, when do you feel you're most kind of aligned with your purpose and passion?
It's such a hard, I don't even know how to answer it.
Yeah.
It depends on the hour, the day. I laughed when you just said your check engine light. It just reminded me, I need four new tires and my oil change. So, one more thing. So when I feel most aligned is when I've got my to-do list and everything's checked off and things are getting done. Even on Sunday, I laugh when you said the laundry. I was folding some laundry and I spilled my 40-ounce water on my son's bed. I couldn't even blame anybody else, because why would I put that there? And so then it was another thing. Great, now let's do the sheets. And, on Sunday, I did not feel myself. I did not feel aligned with, putting my needs first, and it was just, everything was crashing down. So it's trying to manage. I think that's probably the best way of saying it, managing, and having things to look forward to, having, a girls' night out, on the calendar, or getting a sitter for a random day and not having a plan yet, but knowing you're going to make a plan because you've got a sitter hired. So it's trying to, keep myself moving forward.
I appreciate that moving forward is the key in those moments when you kind of feel like you're stuck in quicksand, or like, how am I going to get out? But yes, if you are forward thinking and understands that at any given moment that, you can dig yourself out of that quicksand.
Yeah, for sure.
I really appreciate that. So I guess, as we're kind of nearing the end of our conversation, I did want to kind of touch a little bit about your professional journey, because I think that that's important. Again, as we said, we are mothers, and we've spent a lot of time talking about your journey to becoming a mother, but I think, as we've said, that there's another part of Allison. And so can you kind of highlight your professional kind of journey?
Yeah, so, I am a lawyer. I practice, matrimonial and family law. I fell into it because I wanted to help people. And I do. I look at my job as really trying to help people, because I believe, whether or not you're still a family, as I said before, it might sound hokey, you're an intact family, I should say, you're still a family. And I really try to put, I was a psychology major in college. I try to, put everything into practice and help people. And there's two sides of things. And, you still, every decision has to be made with your kids in mind, because it's going to make you a better parent and a better co-parent. So, that's my professional career, and I'm lucky. I'm lucky that, as far as lawyers are concerned, I'm not in big law or that kind of stuff where you're doing all these transactions in the middle of the night. So, I often I act as a parenting coordinator, I act as a mediator, and I try sometimes to think about, okay, let me look at it from how I would act, how somebody else might act, where can we try to blend ideas and try to make things work for people. So, it's just, I guess, a coincidence that, I'm helping other people who, are going to start navigating a life differently than they might have chosen. Because that's really what it's all about, is navigating a path that, you didn't envision for yourself. Circling back to where you asked before, growing up, I also was going to get married at 24 and have my kids at 27 and 30 and 33 and 2 girls and a boy. And, you have everything planned out. And so, it's recognizing that your journey might be different than what you envision, but, it doesn't make it less special.
100%. 100%. And that at any given moment, you can always write the next chapter. I mean, that's exactly the reason why I named the podcast what it is, because we are constantly writing new chapters. And if something isn't working for you in a given chapter and you want to change it, then you take out your pen and you start writing something new, that there's always a different path to take. It might not be easy. It might take some work. There might be some challenges, bumps along the way, but there is always a new direction to turn. And I think that where people get so stuck is that they just don't see that there are other doors that they can open, or that they're afraid to open up those other doors.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I would say that, like, to anybody listening to this who, might be thinking about becoming a solo parent, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk about it. It's scary. It's untraditional. It's thankfully becoming a more popular trend, maybe. I know a lot more people who have done it. I know men who have done it, who've become single parents or solo parents. I'm contradicting myself now using a different word, but it also doesn't mean that your life can't, take the same path. I mean, I was lucky enough a week before the world shut down to meet an amazing man who I have the best relationship I've ever had and could have envisioned. And even that was a path that was a different one, having to just talk to each other on the phone for a couple months while we were all locked down. So it's really, I would love for people to reach out to me, to be able to talk about, oh, but what if I do this? I'm not ever going to meet somebody. Your life's not ending. It might pause in different ways, but, it's becoming a mother, again, for all the complaining and toughness and, angst it gives you. It is the best decision I've ever done, the best job I've ever had, the best role I've ever had. You also got me on a good day. My kids have actually been behaved for the last 48 hours. So, I've slept, I'm in a good mood today, but, it's really, like I said, it's a journey that I didn't envision taking in this way, but, the best one I've done.
Right, but it goes back to, again, the beginning of the conversation, that it was important to you. It was important to you to become a mother at some point on your journey. And how that happened, obviously you said you had this initial vision, but that doesn't mean that you can't change the picture a little bit. And you've created this beautiful life, one where, just like, other mothers, we're balancing, we're trying to do things, but that you made that choice. And that, like I said, it's so inspirational, it's so admirable that when you want something, that you go after it and you don't let other things kind of get in your way. So I really appreciate you sharing and being so open, and like I said, you're a real inspiration. So again, is there anything else that you think the community of the Next Chapter needs to
No, I think what you just said, though, is the one of the lines you just said about balancing. And just anybody who's listening, anybody who's a mom, none of us have it figured out.
Right.
Even on our best day where we seem like we're juggling and got it all figured out, no one has it figured out. So to all the new moms out there with the babies and, how am I ever going to get through it? You will. we all get through it. None of us know what we're doing. You'd probably say the same thing at your
Right, at any stage, there are new things. They say, like, what? Little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems, or
exactly.
Challenges. I don't like the word problems, challenges.
Challenges.
Challenges, there's always, you can find some kind of solution. But yes, that we are continuing to, and if you are open to learning and, like I said, taking kind of a new path, a new twist, that at some point we will, continue one step forward.
One step forward. Just
exactly.
Be honest. Don't, be honest with people. I'm struggling today. It's hard. Talk to people, because probably more people are struggling than you realize.
100%. And that's exactly why I created the Next Chapter community, is to give mothers a voice and to share and to build this supportive community. While people may or may not ever contact you directly, hopefully they will, but that they can, hopefully when they're listening to this episode, that they can see that there are other mothers out there that may be experiencing something similar.
Yeah.
And that you find comfort in that.
Exactly.
So.
And that's I applaud you for doing this, because that's exactly the point. Like, we can all take comfort in listening to each other and, oh wait, that person also feels the same way. So
right. Not everyone's so open.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I really appreciate it. So thank you for sharing your story, and I will share in the show notes how people can reach out to you if they have specific, questions about your journey or want some guidance along their path as well. So thank you so much, Allison.
No, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great being here.
Thank you.